The Jungle didn't just set the stage, it swallowed the entire production. Long before digital effects took over cinema, William Friedkin set out to prove that real danger could be captured on film. What he created was Sorcerer 1977, a movie forged in sweat, rain, and near madness. This wasn't a horror movie, despite the misleading title. It was a survival story told with roaring engines, unstable bridges, and the looming threat of explosions at every turn. Friedkin, fresh from the success of The Exorcist, refused to compromise. He didn't want control, he wanted chaos that could be felt through the screen. And so, he pushed everything to the brink: the trucks, the cast, the crew, and himself. The result? A film many never saw. Released at the wrong time, overshadowed by the bright lights and galactic thrills of Star Wars, Sorcerer quietly sank. It was misunderstood by critics, ignored by audiences, and mishandled by the very studios that had once backed it. But those who worked on the film never forgot. The Jungle had taken something from all of them. A crew member vanished, a lead actor barely made it out alive, and a director nearly destroyed his own career in pursuit of something he couldn't fully explain. Now, nearly 5 decades later, the film has resurfaced, and with it, the stories no one was supposed to hear. These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about Sorcerer 1977, a movie that was less about trucks carrying dynamite and more about the quiet explosion of a vision gone too far. Fact 1. The bridge scene that nearly claimed a life. It wasn't acting, it was real fear caught on film. In one of Sorcerer's most nerve-wracking sequences, Roy Scheider's character edges a truck across a swaying rope bridge battered by storm and river. What most viewers don't realize is that the scene wasn't simulated. The truck was real, the bridge was real, and the danger was very real. Friedkin had refused to use visual effects. He wanted every drop of rain, every groan of the structure, and every slip of the tire to be authentic. But nature proved unpredictable. A sudden shift in wind caused the bridge to tilt. As the truck lost traction, Scheider, who was behind the wheel without a double, found himself fighting to stay on course, both physically and mentally. Crew members watching from the sidelines panicked. If the vehicle had tipped, it would have gone into the river and taken Scheider with it. There were no safety harnesses, no second chances. Friedkin didn't call cut. He let the camera capture it all. The final footage is terrifying not because it's well acted, but because the actor was genuinely at risk. So the next time you see that scene, ask yourself, was it dedication, or did Sorcerer demand more than any film should? Fact 2. A title that doomed the film from the start. People expected a sequel to The Exorcist. They got diesel fuel and dread. When Sorcerer was announced, audiences anticipated something supernatural. The title sounded ominous, mystical, like it belonged to a story of curses or black magic. Friedkin, however, had something very different in mind. The title referred to one of the trucks in the film. To him, it symbolized doom, an invisible, creeping malevolence. But the marketing leaned into the supernatural interpretation. Posters and trailers teased a tone that didn't exist. Horror fans arrived hoping for demons. What they got instead was existential despair in a South American jungle. Studio executives pleaded with Friedkin to reconsider the name. He refused. "The Sorcerer is within us," he said. But for theatergoers in 1977, that poetic explanation didn't land. The confusion was immediate. The disappointment, irreversible. So the question lingers, was the title a metaphor too obscure, or was Friedkin daring audiences to be misled? Fact 3. Released at the worst possible moment in film history. Timing isn't everything unless you open against Star Wars. When Sorcerer premiered in June 1977, it was crushed under the weight of a cultural shift. Star Wars had just exploded into theaters, redefining blockbuster cinema and monopolizing audience attention. Friedkin's grim, atmospheric thriller didn't stand a chance. While Star Wars offered escapism, hope, and spectacle, Sorcerer delivered sweat, mud, and dread. It wasn't what moviegoers wanted at the time. Theaters quickly dropped it, reviews were mixed, and any momentum it might have had evaporated overnight. Behind closed doors, some insiders believed the release date had been chosen deliberately to bury the film. Others thought Friedkin's reputation for being difficult had finally caught up with him. Whatever the reason, the result was brutal. Despite its budget and ambition, Sorcerer became one of the biggest box office failures of its era. And yet, some say the industry wasn't just unprepared, it was afraid. Afraid of what the film represented, risk, chaos, and a kind of filmmaking that couldn't be controlled. Fact 4. The curse Friedkin didn't believe in until it was too late. At first, he laughed off the signs. Then the jungle made him stop laughing. Production on Sorcerer was plagued from day one. Equipment vanished, locations flooded, tempers exploded. Friedkin, always defiant, dismissed talk of bad luck until it started following him personally. In Mexico, torrential rains destroyed the first major set. In the Dominican Republic, a crew member was nearly swept away during a routine river crossing. Later, Friedkin fell ill with a tropical infection that forced him to direct from a makeshift bed for several days. Villagers whispered about disturbed ground and spirits awakened. The crew mocked them until one of the bridges collapsed before a single take could be filmed. That's when the laughter stopped. Friedkin began referring to the production as cursed, half joking at first. But in interviews years later, he admitted the film changed him not creatively, but physically and psychologically. So ask yourself, was it just a string of unfortunate events, or did the jungle fight back? Fact 5. Building a death trap twice. Most directors would have walked away. Friedkin built it again. The centerpiece of Sorcerer, a sequence where trucks teeter on a rope bridge over raging waters, required an ambitious set. A massive bridge was constructed by hand in the Dominican Republic. Just before filming, it became unstable due to heavy rains and rising river current. Rather than alter the scene, Friedkin relocated the shoot. In Mexico, they rebuilt the entire structure, this time with more complexity and just as much risk. It swayed, it groaned. It looked like it might collapse at any moment, because it nearly did. Trucks weighing several tons were driven across, with real actors inside. Water cannons simulated storms. Crew members wore harnesses in case the structure failed. The cost? Astronomical. The danger? Constant. The footage? Unmatched. So was it dedication to authenticity or a director pushing reality beyond its limits? In Friedkin's world, there may not have been a difference. Fact 6. The star who walked away because he couldn't bring his wife. The casting was nearly iconic until it wasn't. Steve McQueen was offered the lead role in Sorcerer and was genuinely excited about the part. He loved the script and saw it as a chance to do something gritty and character-driven. But there was one catch. He wanted his then-wife, Ali McGraw, to travel with him during the shoot. Friedkin said no. The production would take place in remote jungles, under harsh and dangerous conditions. No guests, no distractions. McQueen pleaded, offering to cut his fee, even fund her expenses personally. Friedkin didn't budge. McQueen withdrew from the film. Roy Scheider, still hot off Jaws, stepped in. The loss was massive. McQueen's name could have drawn a broader audience. His face on the poster might have changed the film's fate. Instead, Sorcerer was released with less star power, less marketing appeal, and far more to prove. So did Friedkin make the right call? Or did his no-compromise stance cost the film its chance at survival? Fact 7. The crew meltdown that split the production in half. By week 10, things were already unraveling. The pressure of filming in hostile locations, combined with Friedkin's relentless demands, led to what many described as a psychological breaking point for the crew. People weren't just quitting, they were being pushed out. Fed up with missed deadlines, blown budgets, and repeated safety violations, key team members confronted Friedkin. His reaction? Immediate termination. Within days, more than a dozen crew were let go, including longtime collaborators. Friedkin didn't view it as a crisis. He called it a cleansing. New hires were flown in from the US, while local workers were promoted to key roles. But the tension didn't ease. If anything, it worsened. Paranoia crept in. Some departments refused to communicate. Everyone feared they'd be next. Still, the camera kept rolling. Friedkin would later claim that this breakdown forged the film's uncompromising tone. Others saw it as self-inflicted collapse masquerading as vision. So which was it? A necessary purge? Or the slow implosion of a set on the edge of madness? Fact 8. A score that shaped the film before the film was finished. The music wasn't composed to match the movie was cut to match the music. When Friedkin approached the electronic group Tangerine Dream, he asked them to compose a score, not after seeing the film, but before. All he gave them was a basic outline, a few scenes, and a description of the emotional tone. They delivered a series of haunting, synthetic soundscapes that pulsed like an engine and hissed like steam. Instead of requesting changes, Friedkin adjusted the edit of several major scenes to fit their rhythms. This reversal of process was unheard of at the time and controversial. But the gamble paid off. The eerie, unearthly soundtrack elevated the film's unease. It didn't just accompany the action, it colored it. Viewers weren't watching trucks cross a bridge. They were watching fate grind forward, one analog pulse at a time. In hindsight, Sorcerer's score is one of its most innovative elements. Not reactive, but prophetic. Fact 9. A mistake so dangerous, Friedkin decided to keep it. Not every explosion in Sorcerer was intentional. During the jungle scene, where the team clears a blocked road using nitroglycerin, the special effects team miscalculated the placement of explosives. The resulting blast went off too close to several pieces of lighting equipment and dangerously near a few crew members. The explosion shook the cameras, cracked a lens, and temporarily halted production. There were injuries minor, but enough to trigger an insurance review. But when Friedkin reviewed the footage, he refused to reshoot. The moment was too raw, too chaotic. It didn't just look real, it was. He edited the scene into the final cut, almost untouched. The lesson? In Sorcerer, even the mistakes were allowed to bleed into the art. Because sometimes, danger isn't part of the story, it is the story. Fact 10. Roy Scheider wasn't first pick and he knew it. He brought intensity to the screen, but off camera, it was tension of a different kind. When Scheider was cast in Sorcerer, it wasn't because he was the studio's top choice. He wasn't even Friedkin's. After losing both Steve McQueen and Marcello Mastroianni for different reasons, Friedkin turned to the Jaws star as a practical option. Scheider, aware of this, entered the project already on uneven ground. And things didn't improve. Friedkin directed with an iron grip, demanding multiple takes, pushing scenes to extremes. The two clashed frequently, both strong-willed, both unwilling to yield. There were days on set when they reportedly didn't speak. Crew members said the atmosphere could turn icy in an instant. And yet, what unfolded on screen was electric. Scheider's weariness, his paranoia, his slow unraveling all felt disturbingly real. Was it method acting, or just a man cracking under pressure? Either way, Friedkin got the performance he needed. But at what cost? Because sometimes the best acting isn't acting at all. Fact 11. The screening that nearly started a riot. The first audience to watch Sorcerer didn't applaud, they revolted. During a test screening in California, the audience was handed no synopsis, no marketing teaser, just a title and a seat. Within minutes, confusion set in. The opening featured multiple characters, multiple countries, and no clear hero. By the midpoint, people began shifting uncomfortably. Some laughed, others cursed. A few walked out, muttering that they thought it was a horror movie. One man reportedly shouted, "What the hell is this?" as he exited the theater. The studio executives were rattled. They asked Friedkin if he'd consider recutting the film, streamlining the narrative, or adjusting the tone. His answer? A flat no. Not a frame was altered after that screening. To Friedkin, the film's refusal to explain itself was the point. But to that early audience, it was a cinematic ambush they hadn't signed up for. Fact 12. Two studios tried to kill it and failed. Few films fight their own financiers. Sorcerer nearly did it twice. Originally backed by both Universal and Paramount, the film was greenlit with a generous budget, but by the time production had run weeks over schedule and millions over budget, nerves began to fray. Studio execs flew to set locations to observe and were horrified by what they saw. Uncontrolled chaos, wrecked equipment, and a director refusing compromise. They demanded changes. Friedkin ignored them. In a second attempt, legal teams prepared paperwork to potentially pull the plug. Friedkin responded by threatening to lock away the film reels. One report even claimed he vowed to destroy the negatives before handing them over unfinished. Whether that was bluster or intent, it worked. The studios backed down. Production resumed. The power struggle became part of the film's DNA. Not just a story about men fighting nature, but about a director fighting everyone else. And somehow, he won. Fact 13. The comeback that never was. Friedkin wanted to reunite Lightning, but the storm never materialized. After their explosive collaboration on The French Connection, William Friedkin envisioned Gene Hackman in the lead for Sorcerer. He knew Hackman could deliver rage, fear, and stoicism in equal measure, but Hackman never returned the call. Their previous project had been a success, but also a battleground. Friedkin was infamous for pushing actors past the breaking point, and Hackman, while professional, was drained by the experience. When the offer came for Sorcerer, he didn't just decline, he reportedly avoided the conversation altogether. The role moved on, and in a strange twist, it eventually went to Roy Scheider, who had once auditioned to play Popeye Doyle, the role Hackman made iconic. Had Hackman accepted, the film may have carried a different weight, but perhaps it also would have carried the same ghosts. Some actors choose not to revisit the fire. Hackman never looked back. Fact 14. A truck that became a legend for all the wrong reasons. It broke down constantly. It stalled mid-shot, and Friedkin adored it. One of the trucks used in Sorcerer, cobbled together from parts scavenged across Latin America, was known on set as Lazaro. It was meant to look battered, but the problem was, it actually was. The engine failed repeatedly, the steering was unreliable, During a crucial scene, it refused to start after 2 hours of resets. Scheider, already under pressure, reportedly kicked the door and walked off set. Producers pushed for a backup. Friedkin refused. To him, Lazaro wasn't a prop, it was a character. Its unpredictability, its weight, its looming presence on the screen all added to the film's grim realism. In the final cut, the truck groans, sputters, and seems to resist forward motion. Audiences assumed it was acting. It wasn't. It just didn't want to cooperate. Fact 15. The stranger who entered the frame and the film's history. He didn't belong there, but the jungle made room. In a wide establishing shot, just as one of the trucks grinds through the foliage, a lone figure stands motionless in the distance watching, dressed in rags, silent, still. He wasn't cast. He wasn't crew. He was never identified. Apparently, a local villager had wandered onto the set during shooting. The crew mistook him for an extra. Friedkin, upon reviewing the footage, said nothing. He let the moment remain. That man appears in the final cut. No name, no credit, just an accidental witness folded into the fabric of the film. Some call it a happy accident. Others feel it's something more eerie, like the jungle leaving its fingerprint on the reel. Whoever he was, he belongs to Sorcerer now. Fact 16. The jungle you heard was a lie. You thought you were hearing nature. You weren't. Although Sorcerer was shot in actual jungles, the ambient sound in the final film was almost entirely artificial. Friedkin found the real recordings too passive, too ordinary. He wanted dread, not realism. So the sound team constructed an entirely new soundscape. Bird calls were digitally stretched. Insect noises were modulated to frequencies just below conscious detection. Rainfall was recorded indoors, splashing against tin and canvas, then layered over distorted wind howls. They even inserted low, guttural hums, barely audible tones that create discomfort without explanation. It wasn't about capturing the jungle, it was about making it feel hostile. By the time the final mix was completed, almost none of the original location audio remained. So the next time you feel uneasy watching Sorcerer, remember, it's not just what you're seeing, it's what they've made you feel without you even knowing. Fact chapter Sprezice. Friedkin's fire threat wasn't metaphor. He didn't threaten to walk off the set. He threatened to burn it down. When the studios pushed back on Sorcerer's budget overruns and its grim, fragmented story structure, Friedkin dug in his heels. Tensions escalated when executives suggested recutting the film to make it more accessible. According to multiple sources, Friedkin responded by saying he'd destroy the negatives himself if they tried to interfere. Not figuratively, literally. Burn the reels, end the film. He doubled security around the editing room. He restricted access to footage. At one point, he moved the film canisters off-site without informing the studio. For Friedkin, Sorcerer wasn't just a project. It was a line in the sand. And if he couldn't release it on his terms, he'd rather make sure no one saw it at all. Fact 18. The original ending was an explosion, not a whisper. The final scene you saw wasn't the one Friedkin wanted. In the released version of Sorcerer, Scanlan survives his impossible journey, only to be met by a car of strangers in a dusty village. There's no violence, just a lingering implication that something terrible is coming. But that wasn't the original plan. Friedkin's first ending was far more brutal. As Scanlan approaches safety, his truck hits a bump and explodes. Instant death, no suspense. Just a reminder that fate doesn't care how far you've come. Everyone dies. The studio panicked. Test screenings were disastrous. They pushed for anything with a sliver of ambiguity. Friedkin, reluctantly, reshot the ending to what we have now. But even the final version offers no comfort, just quiet doom. So which is worse? Being blown apart or living long enough to know you were never going to make it out? Fact 19. The film nearly disappeared, forever until Friedkin fought for it. For decades, Sorcerer was a ghost. After its box office failure, the film became cinematic debris scattered across bad VHS transfers and whispered conversations. The master negative was left in poor storage conditions, color faded, audio degraded. Legal disputes between Universal and Paramount ensured that no proper restoration was ever pursued. Friedkin watched his creation rot in obscurity. Then, in the early 2010 seconds, he began making calls. He tracked down materials, he argued with lawyers, he convinced Warner Brothers to join the effort. The original reels were recovered barely intact and painstakingly restored frame by frame into a full 4 kelvins remaster. In 2013, Sorcerer returned to the screen in Venice. The same film that had once been abandoned was now hailed as a masterpiece rediscovered. Critics who had dismissed it in 1977 called it visionary, prophetic. The reels that nearly turned to dust became the clearest picture we ever had of Friedkin's madness. So ask yourself, did the world change, Or did we finally earn the right to see it clearly? Fact 20. The hidden voice at the start of the film. You'd only hear it if you were listening for ghosts. At the very beginning of Sorcerer, as the title appears in stark red text on a black background, the soundscape is deceptively simple. Wind, rustling leaves, a faint rumble. But buried deep in the audio mix is something else. A distorted whisper, slowed, almost unintelligible. But when isolated by sound engineers during the restoration, the phrase becomes clear: we were never meant to survive. It doesn't appear in any script. It's not part of the credits. Friedkin never acknowledged it publicly. Was it added as a final edit? A subconscious signature? A secret joke? Or was it always there just unheard? Whatever it is, the line perfectly mirrors the film's fatalism. Trucks loaded with death, men burdened by guilt, a jungle that doesn't care who makes it out. And now, a voice that reminds us, maybe no one was ever supposed to. Bonus fact: the name in the credits that doesn't exist. Sometimes, the strangest mystery isn't in the jungle, it's in the credits. Among the final scrolling names at the end of Sorcerer, there's a brief mention: G. Ariza, Transport Coordinator, Dominican Unit. On paper, it's a small acknowledgement. But when researchers and fans attempted to locate this person for interviews or commentary decades later, no one could find him. There were no union records, no payment logs, no immigration paperwork. No crew members could remember a G. Ariza with any clarity. One vaguely recalled, "A guy who arranged fuel deliveries and disappeared before wrap." Another insisted the name was made up to cover for a local fixer who preferred anonymity. Friedkin himself was asked about Ariza during the restoration process. His response? A long pause, followed by, "I don't recall the name, but I trusted whoever put it there." Some speculate that Ariza may have died during production. Others think he was never real to begin with. A ghost name, a placeholder, a joke, or something left behind by the jungle itself. The name remains unchanged in every version of the film. So here's the final enigma. Was G. Ariza a forgotten man lost to time, or did Sorcerer credit someone who was never truly there? The facts are now uncovered, but what still hides beneath the mud, the metal, and the silence? Which of these truths do you think was never meant to come to light? And which ones, if any, were accidents we were supposed to forget? Tell us in the comment. And if there's another film history tried to erase, let us know before its secrets vanish for good.